It did not.
It did not have a for sale sign. This guy was just like, that sure does look like something somebody would want to sell. It was struggling a little bit. And so we tracked down the owner using just good old Q Public, right?
That's correct.
Just good old Q Public. Tracked him down, and he said, I don't really want to sell that, but I do have these 3 mobile homes in Jackson County that I'm trying to get rid of.
Mm. So you didn't get to buy the park?
So we did not buy the park.
That's so sad.
He wanted cash for it, and we later found out the reason he wanted cash for it was because he doesn't deal with deeds a whole lot. Or titles. Or any of that legal mumbo jumbo. So it had to be a cash transaction. And the same went for these 3 mobile homes, but it was an amount that we could come up with.
So why would you even want to buy it if it didn't have titles?
Why would we want to buy it if it didn't have titles? Well, we were convinced that despite the seller being very honest with us, he told us straight up from the beginning, you will not be able to get titles for these. And we said, oh, please, we've been doing this for weeks. Of course we can get titles for these. Did we get titles for those?
We did not get titles for those.
Right. But you ended up selling them, so.
We ended up selling them the same way we bought them, for cash only. So for less than market value, but because we had to find cash buyers. But along the way, we learned so much. So much.
What's the idea to keep it as rental? Like you saw it and you're like, oh, this is good rental property?
It's going to be great cash flow, which it could have been, but we learned there's something about our personalities.
We're just 2 suckers for people with a sob story.
Yeah.
We're not good landlords.
We're both pretty emotional people. That does not mix well with managing a trailer park necessarily. It can. You can always hire somebody else to manage it for you. But if you're going to manage it directly, we would highly recommend that you be very firm, very direct, and just not give an inch.
Stick to the rules.
Stick to the rules.
And the contract.
It doesn't matter what the sad story is. You stick to the rules and the contract, you'll be just fine.
You have kids and mouths to feed also.
We do.
Yeah, so
we do.
Anyway.
So it is a fabulous way to make money. So we hope not to dissuade anybody. But if you decide you must manage it yourself and you're as soft as we are, you probably should pick a different asset.
Exactly. Because there's always a sob story of when the power bill got paid, but the rent did not.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But you sold it how fast?
That one took us about a year to get rid of. We went through contractor after contractor, and don't hire your local crackhead. They don't work good.
They're cheaper though.
They're cheaper, and that's what we were thinking. Cheap.
Right.
Let's get this thing fixed.
Right.
But y'all think he's joking about the crackhead? No, he's not joking.
We paid for it several times over.
Multiple
but
crackheads.
it's lessons learned that springboarded us from that. We did actually profit on that deal. All 3 of the mobile homes that we bought for that one deal, and but the lessons learned from that right there springboarded us into the next deals that we completed, and it was a valuable asset because we've looked at several other mobile homes that didn't have titles, and we said no way.
Some people can get titles in some cases. These were really special, where the owner he's got a special personality. He made some people unhappy, and some banks went out of business, and just the list goes on and on why the titles were just completely unattainable.
Right.
But
I mean, you told me about that because I've done that too, where
yeah,
I've had lost titles, and then you got to go down to the same as the tag office and do a bunch of paperwork, and over a long period of time, they will send you a new title.
Yeah.
And I've even had one where bank went out of business, and you got to go show them proof with documentation from the state, whatever state the bank was in. But you're saying that it didn't matter when you went to sell it?
It was just a bad combination that is very rare. So you probably can get a title for a mobile home if you try hard enough, but boy, these were tough.
Right.
These were tough.
Right. So you sold that and you made a couple dollars an hour.
A few dollars, but what we learned was amazing. I mean, the big lessons were, like David already said, don't just try to save every penny on hiring people for, I think we hired somebody for $15 an hour. So like, expect if you want skilled labor to pay more than they can get at a fast food restaurant.
Good idea.
I mean, even if somebody says they'll work super cheap, just think to yourself, do I really want somebody that'll work for that cheap? Like, how are they going to do the job right? It makes no sense. So, yeah.
Right.
Pay some good help a fair wage. That's the lesson there.
So you sold that, and did you flip into the Raven County home, or was that totally separate?
That was totally separate.
So you have an amazing
that money into Jackson County land.
Oh, Jackson County land.
Which
might as well talk about that.
We might as well get into the Jackson County land. David, once again, not on the market. How did you find the Jackson County land?
All right.
Arcade specifically.
So I bought a piece of property from a guy I went to church with down in Greensboro on Highway 15. And he says, hey, my neighbor might be interested in selling his 2 mobile homes. And since you're buying mobile homes, you know, kind of the puzzle pieces fit together because that's what we then got familiar with. You might be interested in talking to him. Well, I called him, and sure enough, he's got him under contract. And I said, well, look, if the contract falls through, let me know. I'm very interested. I own the property right next door. I'd love to, talk to you about this one. He says, oh, by the way, I have another piece of property in Jackson County, and I have another piece of property in Madison County I'm wanting to get rid of. Is that something that you're interested in? And I said, yeah. I said, especially the arcade property, Jackson County. And so I went and looked at it. It was 7 acres. And it had a double wide on it on 5 acres, and it was split into 2 lots, 5 acres and 2 acres. And told Chris about it. We went over there and checked it out.
And it had something that drew my eye immediately. I'm always drawn to natural beauty, which will reoccur later in our story. So there's this beautiful creek in the backyard, beautiful wooded land, undisturbed, farmland in the area. It's just really
tons
pretty.
of also trash.
Tons of trash.
That's
tons of trash.
Those are dollar signs.
Yeah, so
see a lot of trash equals dollar signs.
So not only was there trash, but there was a problem that the seller was having. So you're going to find that a lot of your best deals that you're going to find in the future are when you're solving someone's problem. And in this case, the problem was he had some tenants that he was having a whole lot of trouble with. The mobile home on the site was completely dilapidated, falling apart. He had made this amazing deal with these tenants that they would pay a very small rent, $100 a month. Is that right?
I think it was
$200 a month.
Oh, wow.
In exchange for them fixing the place up.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Jake knows exactly where this is going. Well,
they took all that savings.
They took all that savings and
so buy trash bags, throw in the yard.
Did other things with it besides fix the place up. We'll just make it really a pleasant story.
So, like, how was it something like you're like, oh, we'll offer you this, and he just said right away, like, okay, I'll take it?
No, actually, he named the price, and just me being familiar with the area or whatever, I was like, yeah, we'll take it.
All right.
I didn't try to negotiate or anything because it was already below market value, and I knew that the lots, if we could split it up, if we couldn't split it up, the 5 acre lot with the creek on the back of it would bring his asking price, and the other 2 acres would be just extra.
Right.
And it was nice and flat and clear.
Deciding to clear off the mobile home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it was obvious the mobile home was going to be cleared out. The impediment left was the people living there, and the seller told us that it should be no problem getting rid of them. No problem at all. Just a month-to-month lease. And no, he didn't have a copy of that lease, but it's just month-to-month. Well,
there was a lease.
Another excellent lesson.
Right. Which really, 60-day notice, state of Georgia.
Yeah.
Like
Except
I said,
they had a 24-month lease.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, that one. So we got to pay the old cash for keys game there, and we paid them $3,000 to leave, which turned out to be a small amount in the end.
Is that where you started, or is that where you just finished up negotiations?
That's where we finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why not just evict them?
Oh, and the best part, there were 2 separate leases, actually. We had to pay 2 people.
Oh, so somebody found a lease.
Yeah, that was a combined lease. Yeah, for the 2.
Yeah, the seller had put the second person on the lease so that they could get power because the first person wouldn't qualify to get power.
Oh, sheesh.
So we got to pay both of them.
Do you care to share any numbers of like how much you bought the property for? And
Yeah.
what you spent on cleaning it up and all that stuff?
We paid $95 for the property,
$95,000.
and then we cleaned it up, and it cost us roughly 10 to clean it up, clear off the mobile home, pick up all the trash that was scattered out in the woods, haul it out.
And that was a family project too, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I incorporated some teens that I go to church with, and my son, and I got skid steers and stuff. So we done most of the hand cleaning, with it.
Yeah.
And then our plan was to divide it up and build some houses or bring in mobile homes. Because that's the other beautiful part about the land, is that it was zoned. Most of Georgia, the governments hate mobile homes. This was actually not only in Jackson County, but actually barely in the city limits of Arcade. I think it was like maybe the last lot in Arcade. And Arcade specifically is okay with mobile homes as long as it's an acre and a half. So we were able to split it up into 4 lots that could then hold mobile homes or a regular house, of course. We got a lot of help. We should give a shout out to good old Abe.
Yeah.
Abe Abhandan. Abe
is what?
Abe Consulting in Watkinsville.
Engineer, surveyors.
He's the reason he's awesome is because we're very inexperienced, and he does land from start to finish. He's a soil scientist and a surveyor, and no, he's not the cheapest, but we learned from our last lesson.
Cheap is not the best way to go.
Cheapest is not the best. So
Well, I don't even think there's such thing as a cheap surveyor.
probably not. But there are cheaper ones.
Right.
But he's really good because he knows the entire process. And he held our little baby hands all the way through it, through talking to the folks at the city council, talking to the folks at the DOT, because we had to get a second driveway approved to be able to split the lots up. And he smooth talked to all the city council folks. He's been through it 100 times, so he knew exactly what to say. So yes, you can do all that by yourself legally, but it's really a good idea to hire somebody who's done it many, many, many times. So that's the
And
lesson.
I bet the city wouldn't have passed anything if you didn't have an engineer stamp survey.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
And so that one thing I learned that I had previously thought I knew was that you can't have a flag lot. Has anybody heard about that? Anybody know what flag lots are? A flag lot is when you have a lot that's shaped like a flag.
With a flagpole.
Well, yeah. So like you have a long, skinny access to the road, and then part of the land is behind some other people's property. And so in Athens, they don't allow that to a certain extent. And so like every zoning has like, okay, if it's this kind of zoning, you need to have this much road frontage. So like Athens actually does allow it as long as you still have the right road frontage. And so this is where I learned like, oh, I need to get some, like even if you think you know something, always ask an engineer or a surveyor like, hey, is this allowed in this zoning? Or even just call planning and zoning and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, split up a property or do XYZ. Because I just thought, oh, blanket statement, no flag lots. But that's not true, because as long as you actually have the road frontage, you can split it up however. And this one had a bunch of road frontage.
It did have a bunch of road frontage, but we did have to get a variance, which Abe helped us with, get that passed. They only allowed 2 flag lots next to each other. We ended up with 4, and they did allow it because he had a great plan and convinced them that it was great for the community, and everybody agreed.
4 more mobile homes would get
so
to
we got a
show up.
variance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our plan was, at that time, it truly was to build houses. So we said, yes, we can build mobile homes. We'd really like to build houses. We thought that neighborhood would support a higher value right in the middle of Jackson County, very fast growing county. But we still have the ability to go with mobile homes if we so choose.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought up the flag lot thing. That was another good lesson there.
It is.
If you don't mind disclosing, how much did that process cost you guys?
I don't mind. It was roughly $25,000 that we paid Abe, and it was very well worth it in the end.
25,000.
He did.
And fees, or was that basically discussed all up front, saying, hey, we're going to walk you through the entire process, and it's going to be X, Y, and Z for all of it?
Yeah, we didn't do the entire process out front because David and I didn't know what the heck we were doing. We didn't know what the process was, so we just started out with. He was up front with the pieces as we went along. First, we just wanted him to do the soil testing, and then think about different ways that we could possibly draw the lines to break it up in the most advantageous way possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he knew our goal is simply to make the most money we can. So he's like, okay, how can we get 4 buildable lots out of this mess? And he was a wizard with it. He did great.
And also, just a quick tip, if you're working with any surveyor or engineer, if you communicate with them the most, they will get the stuff done the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just like send stuff, say, hey, we want to do this, it might take 3 to 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get on the horn,
this took from beginning to end almost a year.
A little over 9 months.
Some of the delays were on our end, and every professional that's good at their job is busy, so you got to wait on going back and forth. You know, if we did it again, we'd have a clue what we're doing this time. We could get it done a little faster.
They'd go a lot faster.
A lot faster. But we were very proud to learn this whole new strategy, so I'm sure we'll do it again at some point.
So, quick question.
Please.
With land surveyor like Abe, do you
Yep.
have to pay when the job's completed, or do you pay at closing? I have like
Nate asked the question, when you work with a land surveyor and it costs a bunch of money, or any amount of money, can you pay at closing, or do you have to pay it as it happens?
That's an excellent question, and as with most professionals, if it's a large project, there will probably be draws along the way, but you could certainly negotiate that in advance. Everybody's going to be different. It depends on that professional's cash needs at that time, I would expect. So,
And it also depends on if you have to have them stamped to get something approved. The person, the professional might say, give me the money, and then I can put the stamp on it. So,
you have anything to add to that, David?
Yeah, we paid him as we went. So he'd send us a bill for $5,000 here, $8,000 here, $10,000 here, at different intervals along the way. And that way we didn't have that one big lump sum at the end to have to come up with.
It probably had something to do with it being drawn out over time, us not knowing what we're doing, him not knowing us. So if we worked with him again, we probably could convince him to take it all at the end.
Right.
relationship.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Abe Abhamdan. I'm probably mispronouncing it somewhat, but Abe. He goes by Abe. so
Abe
that's easy.
Consulting out of Watkinsville.
Yeah, it's right on 53, just right by Dairy Queen in a little office park.
Yeah.
But he's a great guy.
And so you bought it for 95. You spent, so you were already
Let's
up
say
to
we
35 or 40.
Yeah,
to
let's say
clean up and
40,000.
Abe.
Clean up and Abe, about
So
40,000.
40,000 to get the property ready for sale.
Yeah.
And then why didn't you go ahead and build houses or mobile homes?
We decided that we needed the money quicker than it would take to build a home or something like that. We had another project in mind that we wanted to go ahead and just cash out quickly.
Right. Quickly after a year.
Quickly after a year, yes.
Right.
Relatively quickly.
Right. So what,
So
how
then
much you sell them for?
So then we sold
much did
them
we
2
sell them
lots at a
for?
time.
Mm-hmm.
We sold the 2 front lots to one person and then the 2 back lots to another person, which is interesting. You'd think you'd sell them completely separate, but no, they just came wanting 2 lots,
Right.
the first person, and then, yeah, the back. So we got about 230,000 gross on both sales. And then we
Yeah,
paid
that's about right.
commissions, of course. So I'm going to say that our net profit on that whole deal was maybe 60,000. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
That's really something I should have looked up before I came here tonight. I apologize, but roughly $60,000 net profit for a year of. This is where I was still working part-time, and David was working more than part-time,
Well,
more than full-time.
the way that we done the clearing or whatever is I got paid for that from my other business, just for tax purposes, and in that way it brought that profit margin down for the capital gains that we'd have paid on the land clearing. We had a business write-off for it, and we would have had to pay somebody to do it anyway. So I just rolled it into my trucks and my equipment doing the job, my guys doing the job.
Oh, this brings up a really important point of how we've decided to work our partnership, because you're never going to have an equal amount of work for both people, right?
That's
and
right.
one person is going to be super bitter, like, I'm doing more than him, he's a lazy bum, why are we splitting this? Well, we pay each other $50 an hour, and then the profit beyond that goes into the business. That's how we decided to do it. It doesn't matter how you do it with partnerships. It matters that you agree to it beforehand.
That's right.
Because
You mean and you pay yourself based on at the end.
So at
Okay.
closing of a project, we'll pay each other $50 an hour for whatever we did. We just keep track of our hours.
For the hourly work that we've done.
Right.
Now, like with the equipment and stuff, that's a total separate invoice and everything
Yeah.
to the real estate.
Because
company that we
David brings some heavy equipment in that costs a lot more than $50 an hour to operate,
Yes.
of course. But just us piddling with a hammer and a screwdriver, we just pay ourselves that, and then the rest of the profit goes into our next adventure, whatever that might be.
Awesome. Tell us about your next adventure, which was Tears and Money in Rabun County.
Yes. Yeah, so this was...
Short-term rental, sadness,
This one,
or happiness. I
David
don't
was
know.
smart enough to stay out of this one. This was my wife and I, which I'm glad I mentioned her, because there is no way I'd be anything useful whatsoever without my incredibly supportive wife. No, in all seriousness, like
He thinks she's watching.
she's definitely not
She
watching.
commenting right now? No.
She's definitely not watching.
Right.
So my wife is interested in what I do and incredibly supportive, but she completely trusts me to do it on my own. Like, I ask her for input all the time, but she's like, whatever, just do whatever you think. It's fine, which is kind of a dream for a lot of people who are married. And I'm just incredibly lucky.
Right.
Because I hear all the podcasts I listen to and books, people are always asking, like, how in the world do you get your wife on board with this stupid crap that you're trying to pull?
Right.
And they're like,
You're
oh, man.
risking
you
all
just
your
gotta-"
life's money?
And my answer to that is, it wasn't just like instant, she said, do whatever you want. It's years of doing whatever she wants and making her, fooling her into thinking I'm trustworthy. No, it's seriously like, it's like every other relationship. You just got to give a ton, and then eventually when you need something, it'll be there waiting for you. So just in all your relationships, give as much as you can, and then it'll come back eventually.
There you go. Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
Zig Biddle.
Yeah.
All right.
Totally original thought. Yeah. And David has got, not coincidentally, the exact same situation.
Yeah, my wife is the same way. But, I mean, she's just very supportive. She says, okay, let's do it. You know, I can run an idea by her and she'll...
And you guys actually have, it's not just you two on the partnership. It's you and
No,
your
it's
wives.
just
Our
our wives,
wives
yeah.
are, we're only half of the business. Our wives are the other half legally. And it's amazing it worked. I mean, we started small on purpose to see if it would work, and it works.
Right.
It works beautifully.
Right.
So I've always been interested in short-term rentals, and my wife has always been interested in lake houses. She didn't care anything about the short-term rental part, but so we found a way to match up our goals. She wants a lake house, and I want to make lots of money so that we can spend time at a lake house.
That's right.
So we find this beautiful lake house in Rabun County. It's just gorgeous. It's actually a little dilapidated when we buy it, but it's gorgeous a year later when we're done fixing it up.
It was on the market?
It was on the market.
I thought you're not supposed to do that as an investor.
It was on the market for this is something really good to look for. It was on the market for way too much for the value. It was some folks that had inherited it, and they thought that it was worth a lot more than it was, even though it was in pretty rough shape. So I go directly to the selling agent, because at this point I've had quite a few real estate transactions. I didn't feel like I needed a ton of guidance on that part. So I go to the agent, which is a nice trick. Sometimes it can work out well, because then that agent's, if they're willing to get both sides of the commission, they have a little extra motivation to make the deal work. So we got a pretty good deal that way, I feel. And we spent a year fixing it up. And right when, let me go back in time just a little bit. Rabun County was also perfect at that time because there's no regulations for short-term rentals. Everybody do whatever they want.
They also don't even have building inspections, do they?
They still don't have building inspections, which is really interesting. So here's the big lesson. If you buy in a market hoping to do short-term rentals and they have no regulations, know that that will change probably very soon. And sure enough, it changed exactly when we finished and we're ready to put it on the market. We had this beautiful plan. We're going to be incredibly respectful of the neighbors. And it turned into a very strict regulation county.
So it was from the county.
It was from the county.
Wow.
Yeah, it was from the county. Now, there's ways to get the license, but you need the full support of your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And y'all can probably guess how often you can get the full support of your neighborhood to open a business right next door to them. So the point is, if you're going to do short-term rentals, I would highly recommend you go into a market that's already got regulations and you're fine with those regulations the way they are. If you go in with no regulations, it's bound to change and go way the other way.
So how do you know your neighbors weren't going to like it? Did you just go knock on their door and say, hey, here's what we're doing?
So the neighbors I talked to were fine with it. They liked my plan. The problem was neighbors kind of far away that I did not talk to were not crazy about it. But looking back at it, I'm actually glad all that happened, because I learned that I want to do hospitality on a larger scale in a commercial setting where everybody, the neighbors and the government, are completely in favor of what you're doing.
Boom. Is that a segue?
I think it is. Sounds an awful lot like a segue. So David and I have decided that our next...
Oh, the camera is off.
Oh, that's okay.
But the sound is on.
Sound is on, yep. So David and I have decided to use that valuable lesson to move into campgrounds.
Your camera is open there. The battery's going to fall out. Rob? Oh, no, it won't.
It won't. Very good. So tell us how we've started this adventure getting into campgrounds now, David.
All right, so y'all heard of that Brandon Turner guy now. He done another podcast, and there I was riding in a truck listening to a podcast, and he had this lady come on named Heather, and she talked about buying a campground in 2011, told her whole life story and how that right there was the first major purchase she ever made and how she made it work. And then she offered this course. So I called up Chris the next morning when he finally woke up, and I'm sitting here at 3:00 in the morning wanting to dial his phone number. Like, oh, you got to hear this idea. This one blows the rest of them out of the water. So I'm riding down the road and I'm listening to this stuff, and then long story short, I get to talk to Chris, whatever. And he's like, yeah, this might work. People will actually pay you rent because they want to be there. And it's not because they have to, it's because they want to. And so that kind of shifted it kind of hibernates marries the short-term rental that he's very familiar with because he's done all this stuff up for Rabun County and doing all the study of that, to the trailer park thing and theme that, we originally started out doing and making money with. And, but now, you don't have an eviction process for an RV park. You just tell them to leave, and the police will escort them out if you got tenants that don't want to pay or don't want to do right. And, he's very hospitable to people, so he's got, that down pat. And, we'll just put in our systems of operation into this right here and fixing up the cabins and the RV basically you got a pedestal that's got power, you got a sewer line that's for the sewage, and then you got water, and customers come to you.
Yeah, that's it. And it's also really appealing to us because it's changing somewhat, but there's still a whole lot of owners of campgrounds that are doing business the same way they were doing it for the last 50 years. That means they might have a website if they're lucky, but the website probably just says call us. There's going to be no direct booking. They might still have a newspaper ad. I don't know. A lot of them might have their books on a notepad with crayon. A lot of them don't love the government. They don't love computers. So that's all dollar signs for the new buyer, because you're taking a beautiful piece of property that everybody would like to be there if they only knew it existed.
Right.
And so it's kind of a dream to take something that beautiful, bring people to it that want to be there. Everybody's happy, and they just want to give you tons of money. It's beautiful.
Do you guys camp or do all kinds of stuff?
Oh yeah, I've grew up. You know, we started out. You know, like I said, I grew up on the rough side of town or whatever, and we started out tent camping, and mostly out of having to. And then as we got older, whatever, we bought a boat, and then we'd go and we'd stay at Lake Lanier and down at Lake Oconee and places like that. So I'm very familiar with that genre of people.
So aren't you guys competing with like all the state parks and national parks?
Well, the crazy thing is, holiday weekends try to find a campsite.
Right.
The regular weekends try to find a campsite.
When
If you're near a
COVID,
lake, yeah.
when COVID hit, campgrounds flourished. Camper sales flourished. And even still right now, I mean, you ride by any of these little self-storage, y'all was talking about that earlier, one of their biggest revenue generators is letting RVs park there.
Oh, yeah.
Or camper storage,
It's great.
boat storage.
What about the seasonality?
In the South, there is you have a hot period to where the market's like booming, but then the campgrounds that we're looking at and focusing on are open year round. You know, in your northern territories, they're seasonal 9 months out of the year, and then closed for 3 months. Who would like a 3-month vacation anyway? Type thing. So it doesn't fit everybody, but it fits what we're wanting to do. Because in the wintertime or whatever, that's when you do all your maintenance and you catch up with everything that you've tried to bust through all summer long.
And the revenue basically covers you for this.
And right. So your summer times is your most profitable times in spring, and then your fall when the leaves start changing. So you got like a 9-month period to where you got really good revenue coming in, and you just squirrel that money back to do all the maintenance stuff in the wintertime.
Awesome.
How far out are you guys looking?
Within 3 to 4 hours
I got
of.
one for you. I'll talk to you about.
Hey,
Please.
they already have enough. I don't have one yet.
I'll talk to you about it.
What areas do y'all focus on year round? Like south of Athens, I assume?
Everywhere.
Everywhere in the southeast.
Everywhere in the southeast, from North Carolina, Tennessee, down to Florida.
And you can get that 4 seasons?
If we can get within that 4-hour radius of Athens in any direction, that's where we want to go.
Are they typically on water?
Not all of them. There's one right in Oconee County that's not on water. It's not on anything, but they have
Oh,
That guy has over $1 million a year gross.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Pine.
The KOA side.
Commerce.
But
and-
our
One in Commerce. That's right.
our prerequisite is that it must have natural beauty, not just 10 miles away, but there.
What's financing like on that?
That is an excellent question. Thank you.
Janet said, "What is financing like for an RV park?"
Yeah. Do you remember when I mentioned that a lot of the books are on notepads with crayons? They hate computers. They hate the government, paying taxes, all that sort of thing.
Oh.
So that, and a lot of times they might say, okay, you need to get a bank loan to buy this because I don't want to hold the note. And then you can humor them and talk to the bank, and the bank will laugh repeatedly. And then you talk to another bank, they'll laugh
So seller finance.
even harder. So then you end up with seller financing, which is actually should be your goal to start with, but you need Just need to convince the owner that
And
that's
is that because it was such bad records, or
correct.
yeah? Okay.
Yep. Any bank is going to need 2 years of good, solid records and tax returns that represent that they actually can make a profit, because the bank's not going to loan you money if you can't prove to them that you're going to be able to pay them back. At least
What?
banks that stay in business. Yeah, right.
So, there's a comment from
From the World Wide Web.
Facebook
Fantastic.
fans.
So just to clarify, you're talking about campgrounds or RV parks specifically?
All of the above.
All the above.
Yes.
All of the above.
Do you have
Yes.
a minimum pad site you usually look for?
We are trying to focus on stuff that's around the 100 mark, anywhere from 75 to 150. Well, maybe. And the reason being is because if it can go more of a long-term tenant base versus the transient sites, which are overnight. And the reason that we set at that goal is because you can put a manager in there and it's bringing in enough revenue to afford a good manager. Plus, as a business owner, we can pull revenue from it as well, being the business owner.
Now, if a smaller park was very close to us or very close to one of our other parks, you can manage it remotely that way. So we wouldn't automatically eliminate a small park, but it would need to be special.
They have
I was
that.
gonna ask what management is like. Is it an on-site manager if it's a bigger campsite?
Janet asked, "What is management like?"
What is management like?
I'm
Well, we're really looking forward to coming back in a year and giving y'all some really awesome details on how we've got this thing up and running. But we can't speak about details because we don't even own it yet. And we're still working on
Janet
that.
said,
No, we don't.
Poop emoji.
Poop emoji.
Wait, so y'all are in the process of getting a park,
Correct.
but you don't have one yet.
Correct.
So you're not even under contract?
We are
No,
under
we are under
contract.
contract.
"Yeah."
We are under contract. But we still would prefer to avoid alienation of the current owner. That's a great
How did you
question.
get in touch with the seller? Esau asked.
That is an amazing.
That you learned that they
We can.
no padding with Crown.
That is excellent. We can talk about many sellers that we've talked to, several of which we might do business with in the future without giving specifics. But David, tell about your awesome strategy.
Smiling face. That's it. No, we actually sent out mailers to
Mail. What?
like snail mail. Can you believe that people still use that?
Yeah.
Those guys do.
And it works.
What is snail mail?
Yeah, it's where you like
Paper mail.
actually pick up
That's-
a pen and write somebody a letter. And
Instead
then
of like email, it goes instantly.
you, yeah.
So 2 months later, they get a letter.
And I mean, it's a get rich slow scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So we basically mailed out flowers with a picture of my family on there saying, hey, we're interested in buying a park. Yours is hit our list or whatever, and please reach out to us. Put a phone number first, and then our email. And we had several people reach out to us, and this older generation, that's what they do. They're not into the tech stuff, and neither are their books.
Email can work. The first emails I sent to RV parks, I had a guy respond. Now, it was in the middle of nowhere in Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like something like a 5% rule number.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, that's amazing. He wanted to sell it for 150 grand, but it was whatever, 5 times 100. The numbers were so good,
Mm-hmm.
but it was literally in the middle of nowhere
Mm-hmm.
in Illinois, and not even in a town.
Right.
That's the key thing about a RV park too. A lot of them is going to be remote like that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people with the housing market the way that it is, we're all talking about real estate. Affordable housing is a thing of the past. There's nothing that anybody can buy. So a lot of these older people are retiring, buying a fifth wheel, parking it in a campground somewhere, and then they don't have to cut grass. They don't have to worry about the power bill. They don't have to worry about the water bill. They don't have to worry about the sewage line getting stopped up. Other than just in the camper.
Right.
What does like medium term tenants look like? Is there parameters or too long, right? What's the whole landscape look like?
Yeah, so legally short term is anything up to 29 days or 30 days, depending on the county. Medium term is usually called 30 or 31 days all the way up to a year. and then a year would be long term. Long term is generally not allowed in campgrounds. Most states and counties don't want people living in there full time. The folks that are there a lot, I'm not going to say they live there because they don't have a mailbox there. They need to go pick up their mail at the post office. That goes into what David mentioned earlier about there's no eviction because they're not tenants, they're guests, just like at a hotel. So you simply ask them to leave, and if they don't want to leave on their own, you have a great relationship with the sheriff and the police department there, and they will help remind them that they do need to leave right now. That going back to the relationship theme that we've had all night, you must have a really good relationship with everybody in the community. I failed that with that house in Rabun County. I didn't have a good enough relationship with every single neighbor in the whole neighborhood. Didn't have a good enough relationship with every single person on the Board of Commissioners to be able to make that fly in such a climate where there was a lot of animosity welling up from the neighbors that I didn't know about until it was too late for me. But I sure did learn it all at once. It was beautiful. But wherever you're going to grow a business, you better have good relationships in the community, and you better improve those relationships over time. Because if anything goes wrong, guess what? You're going to lean on that community to help you out. So start by helping them out first.
I got 2 questions.
Janet has 2 questions.
How did you identify potential properties?
How do you identify potential properties?
Or how did you in your mailers, for your mailers?
I looked at the. I bought basically a name list that had all the campgrounds within 4 hours of Athens, Georgia. And then I went through there and I basically done some old school stuff, which you can hire a VA to do what I done, is see how many sites they had. And the ones that met our requirements on the minimal, and we didn't really put any kind of hard numbers to any of this, but whatever met that minimal, whatever, I reached out to them first. And then, I made a list and I put 3 stars by some, 2 stars by some, 1 star by the others. And we mailed out the 3 stars first, and then we hit the 2nd stars, and then the 1st stars.
Where'd you buy the list?
That's a good question. And my wife, I have to answer that because she handled all that side of it.
Google's not a bad spot either.
But yeah, Google's like my best mentor.
Yeah, and if that were to happen here, this type of site, what would the zoning have to be? Would it be possible?
Here in Athens?
Here-ish.
Well, this guy can answer that
Yeah.
question.
If you are interested, anyone listening to this or here, there is a site that can be purchased. It's already zoned, and it's 20 acres. No, it's not an RV park yet. It's just dirt. It has to be, in Clark County, it has to be commercial rural. Commercial rural. And it usually means it's on septic. And it can be recreation. And that might be the only one that allows recreation by right. Like, it's already in the zoning. I think the other ones, you have to have a variance. So essentially all the commercials you might have to, but then you got to go through the variance process, which can be tough.
And you have one.
Yeah.
For sale.
Yeah, there's one for sale. Yeah, a broker in this office has one, and then in Oconee, they have the same thing. And so you kind of like go by county, and you can either just go on their county website, type in Muni code, MUNI code, whatever county you're in, or the city or whatever, or just call them up and say, hey, what's your recreation zoning? Because that's usually what it's under, is recreation. Yeah.
And we are interested in building campsites eventually, but we decided that to do that, you basically need to have a whole lot of money in 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
To be fighting with the government while you build slowly and then fight with the government again.
Cooperating with the government.
Cooperating with the government. Thank you. And
you need Darth Vader to turn back into Anakin.
Exactly.
Yeah, and David and his wife Cynthia did quite a bit of research into that because we were strongly considering developing one. After our Jackson County land awesomeness, we're like, oh, let's just build one. So they did some research.
Yeah, it takes about 2 years before you start seeing a return on it. At the time when we was doing our research, was about 2 years ago. You could get a site basically from woods to active for around $5,000. And
Wow.
depending on how big the requirements or whatever was, and make sure that you're doing all your everything according to the way that the county wanted you to go. But Clark County was the county that was the most friendliest as far as developing one, as far as the counties around here.
That's what I was wanting him to get to, because he mentioned Oconee. You might find a piece of land that seems like it would be awesome, but Oconee does not want more of those.
No,
I mean, there's the one there, but good
Yeah,
luck.
if they could get rid of the one in Oconee County, they would. But they're grandfathered in, so they can't.
So a good rule of thumb for developing is find out what the county wants before you even start. Because if the
Right.
county does not want it, they will make it very difficult for you.
Yeah.
And to that point, I know rural counties can be hard to work with. There's a lot of like, you just get sent off this way, that way, not very coordinated. But there's already one in place that's derelict, right? It's in bad condition. That footprint's there, right? So does that kind of set the precedent to make it easier if you're working with the county and cooperating?
Nate asked if there's already a site present that might be vacant, you're describing,
Yeah.
or just old.
Has been used a number of
Can you
years.
go ahead and revive that?
That would be easier to do. One of the prerequisites that we're looking for is being able to expand. And because if it's already got that grandfathered in, then you can buy the land around it and hopefully get it rezoned to where it is incorporated with the park. And you can take a 50 site, 25 site, turn it into a 100 site.
Does each RV spot have its own septic?
No, it usually has a per camper septic system. It's not. It's a lot like. They used to have lagoon systems for trailer parks. Y'all familiar with those? Well, what it was is the whole trailer park would dump into a lake back behind the trailer park, and then they'd do water treatment back there. These campsites, they'll have 5 to 6, depending on how big the park is, septic tanks, and then they'll have field lines off of each of those septic tanks, and all of the sewage runs into those tanks, and then it's basically like a rural area septic tank system.
Now, I will say on developing, some counties require one tank per site. So that's the kind of thing you want to look into before you start. Once again, you better find out all the requirements from start to finish, because some counties have some really strict requirements where it might cost more like $50,000 to build one site.
Exactly.
Right. So how do you, tell us about, have you guys gotten into the part about, the type of tenants at the different kind of properties you're looking at? Because in it somewhere, it's a bunch of traveling construction guys, and, they keep flowing in and out, or you have the people, which you already talked about, owning all the mobile homes, and it's, very low-income housing. So then you have these people bring their trailers and sit there for 2 years, bringing all their junk everywhere.
You just like running any other business, you have strict guidelines that you go by and you implement the rules. What me and Chris is looking for, because we got young kids, that's kind of family-oriented parks is what we want. We want to incorporate a place to bring your kids, and whether it's the lake or whether it's the mountains, whether it's a creek or whether it's the beach. Any of that right there, you pick your market and then you target that market. The longer term RV parks, you want to, I don't want to say you want to put the 55 plus in there, but they're the ones that's going to be the easiest one to manage because, let's just face it, those guys have a whole lot better work ethic than what my generation does and the ones under me.
What we're targeting is actually going to be more work than it has to be. If you wanted to just make a whole lot of money, I would be looking for one that's just a giant parking lot or field right by a highway and just fill it up with people that want to live there, basically. You make it legal in whatever ways you need to for that community, but if you just want to make a whole bunch of cash, That's what I would be looking for, just a field, parking lot by a highway, fill it up and count your money.
That's what they did in Commerce. It started out as like something like 40 spaces. Maybe they had 50. And they had tent camping, a lot of tent camping. Whether that was allowed, I don't know. But then somebody bought the whole property, and it already had included with it 20-something acres. And so that now they're over 150. And it's a KOA, and it's like very little cement. It's just mostly all nice, fancy gravel. And it is busy. They're making some cash. And it's like, you go there and you're like, why would anybody park their RV here? It's like in Commerce. But it's also right next to I-85, and you have beautiful outlet shopping. Everyone loves that, don't they?
Natural beauty.
And natural beauty of outlet.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. I missed that one.
And, I mean, there was a nice hill, and it had a pool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
So the point there is, yes, we're making some concessions. We're not going to make as much money as we possibly could, but the entire purpose of everything we're doing is to enjoy our lives with our family. Like Ethan alluded to earlier, actually, if you're talking about hours of actually working, I'm working less now than when I had a full-time job, because I had the full-time job and then I would come home and work with him. But we're actually staying married, and our kids still love us, even though we're going to be making a whole lot of money, because our strategy is to include our families in our plans. That's where the natural beauty comes from. Why would a kid want to come hang out with daddy in a parking lot? So we're going to have a beautiful lake for them to play. They love fishing. They love checking out the gators.
Outdoors.
Yeah, just being outside. So that's why we're doing this, so we can be with our families.
Pretty smart.
That's why our criteria is the way that it is. We want eventually to have 10 of these parks across the United States. I'd love to see one in Alaska, and then just travel from park to park to park to park, and then turn around and come right back.
Smart. So, I know all about your crazy stories, and you have a wonderful story about flipping a house in Social Circle, Monroe. Which one? And you have the dumbest, worst thing possible that could happen to a buyer.
Yeah.
We'll end the show with that story.
I love it. So while we're trying to make our dreams come true, we need to make some money to make our dreams come true. So what better way to make some quick money than to flip a few houses? So we find a mobile home on market. Once again, impossible, right? You can't find a deal on the market. Well, once again, it was way overpriced, a recurring theme, way over the price, and it was on the market for over 30 days, I believe.
Over 30 days. That's
Yeah,
so long.
Well,
In this
is
world,
in
it
this
is.
market,
Yes.
yeah. But we automatically saw it was way overpriced. And something we've learned from selling properties is that buyers are terrified of making an offer. So if a property is way overpriced, it gets 0 offers. So then we come in and offer actually what it's worth in its awful condition, and we get it.
Well, it's less than what it was really worth
Yeah.
after all the due diligence and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So you got it under contract and then still got even more discount?
yes.
Yeah,
Boom.
we did. We got it under contract, did the inspection, pointed out some pretty awful flaws, and we got it for even less. So I guess we could say numbers at this point. It's public record anyways. Yeah, we offered it was on the market for $140,000, and it was in awful shape. And this is in Social Circle, like the neighborhood over from the new Rivian site. So we're like, not only is it going to be affordable housing, which will go really quickly, but it's right next to this incredible development, which at the time was not delayed 5 years. But luckily the affordable housing bit overrules whatever's happening there. People just need affordable housing. So it was on the market for $140,000. We offer $110,000, and we end up getting it for $85,000.
Oh, wow.
87,
500.
You could have wholesaled that for 110.
probably. But
Right,
we
Pablo?
decided to instead get to work.
Yeah. My goal when we went in, I told everybody that we're going to flip this thing in 60 days. which, that's what I just told the contractors that I was using to get them motivated. I said, if we get it done in 60 days, y'all get a bonus on top of what you charge. And so they got in there and they busted it out and hustled. Well, long story short, we had FHA requirements. So that 60 days ended up turning into 90 days, but the last 30 days was just me and Chris going over there here and there when we get a new requirement from the HUD or FHA, and we'd tinker for a half a day and then, go back and then, all right, come back and inspect and do all their whole list of stuff that they had to do. So anyway, we flipped it in 90 days. It was like 87, 86 days.
Yep.
That doesn't sound like a bad story.
No, it's not too bad. Oh, it's not done yet though. So, and we spend roughly $60,000 on the renovation.
All right.
And we listed for $239,000, which would be really nice. And we get an offer relatively quickly, maybe 2-3 weeks in.
That's right.
And it's an FHA. So for those of you unfamiliar with that, they have a whole lot of really strict requirements to make sure that they're usually first-time buyers not getting screwed over. They make sure the house is not falling apart. It's all fine. So they just have a lot of inspections, a lot of certifications you need to get from private entities. They certify the wells, great, septic's great, the roof is great, the
Fireplace.
Chimney, yep, yeah, we had to get the chimney cleaned
Fireplace.
out.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it wasn't a big deal. We just had to get the chimney cleaned out and some minor repair. It was a couple of $100. So we get to closing and everybody's so happy, and the buyer's so happy, and the lawyer leaves the room and says, "I'll be right back. I just gotta check and see if that money showed up yet." Well, no.
Esau knows.
No, the money never showed up. We don't know the whole story, and we legally probably shouldn't get too deep into it, but the point is somebody scammed the buyer, got their information, emailed them some bogus wire instructions, and she just went with it. And on every wire instructions it says, "Please call to make sure these are legitimate instructions." And I just want y'all to all know that every warning in this world is there because something bad happened to somebody. And this really happened. She lost $80,000 she was putting down, and it is in another continent. And I think there's a good chance she'll be made whole, but after fighting a lot with lawyers and investigators and stuff, her money will never be found, but lawyers have insurance for that sort of thing. So hopefully she'll be made whole. But then it took a little bit longer to sell it. But we eventually did sell it again for a little bit less. I think we got...
Yeah, we dropped the price 10.
What did it end?
$229.
It ended up $229, and then minus all the fees and all that kind of good stuff, we netted $206. So we had 87 plus 60 is
136. 146.
147-ish in, and we netted 206 on the sale, so not too bad.
Woo.
And we
God,
haven't...
it's time to flip some mobile homes.
Yeah. Yeah, flipping mobile homes is very different than flipping a regular house, by the way.
Yeah, you just actually get an excavator and flip it over.
Yeah, mostly put it in a dumpster and haul it away and
Right, or
bring
that.
in a new one.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we did well on it. It was a lot of work, and it's very different than a regular house. So if you're gonna flip a mobile home for the first time, you might want to tag along with somebody that's done it before. It's
How's it different?
the construction's very
how is a mobile
different.
home
David,
different?
why don't you go into the construction being different?
When they build a mobile home, it's safe, clean, and affordable. Those are the three factors that they put it together. So instead of having great HVAC systems, they use these systems that are, because it's considered a vehicle. I mean, you got to go to the DMV to get a title. So they fall under different guidelines than what your typical house does. And so the construction on the inside of it, you got different size sheetrock, for instance. Most mobile homes have 3/8 sheetrock. Most houses have either half inch or 5/8. So there's a difference in the wall texture. Mobile homes are less insulated, cheaper windows, that kind of stuff.
cheaper made windows that are actually more expensive.
when you
That's
buy
a weird
specifically to
situation.
put them into a mobile home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is they buy these things in bulk and ship them in boats over here, and they're specifically for mobile homes, so they're not your typical window size that you'd go to Lowe's or Home Depot and pick up. Not even the plumbing on the inside is your typical Lowe's and Home Depot repair stuff. So you got to go to a specialty mobile home
Right.
dealer to
Even
buy
for the
this equipment.
sinks and the doorknobs and all of it.
And in doing that, you pay this real wholesale retail guy whatever he wants to charge, and you're at his convenience.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are some decent ones out there, and he's there to make a profit too. And what we've learned is go ahead and pay the price and get it done right the first time instead of trying to band-aid the stuff.
We should get Nate up here next week. Tell his fun story.
Oh yeah, I did a live and flip on a mobile home, Madison County. I learned a lot.
House hacking in a mobile home.
The whole title process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we lie about it being very different?
It is very different, but there's a huge market out there.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah.
is.
And I put that thing in the market. It sold within a week and had 20 offers. I kid you not.
Woo!
That's awesome.
So,
Yeah,
all that
so
to say
y'all
is there's
y'all don't want to do mobile homes. Y'all stay out away from mobile homes. So when you
It's so
competition,
hard. It's too hard.
it's too hard. It's too complicated.
So I guess let's end. What is your best real estate investing advice? Stealing from the other show.
Read.
Mm.
Everyone that you can get your hands on that's got anything to do with real estate. Robert Kiyosaki. I'm reading one right now. This
Look up a quote.
hold on, it's on my phone.
I'll list off a few while he's finding his. These are books I've read in reverse order that have made a huge impact on my life. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. So that's not so much about real estate, but just organizing your whole life and trying to focus. David and I both need that lesson. We both kind of shoot all over the place, as you can hear from our story tonight. Short-term rentals. A guy named Mark Simpson, the Book Direct Blueprint and the Book Direct Playbook. The playbook is actually the first one. So that's something I've been trying to tell anybody that's getting into short-term rentals is, first of all, don't call it an Airbnb. That drives me insane because you're giving Airbnb ownership of your business. Use Airbnb as a way to market it, sure, but it's not an Airbnb. It's a short-term rental that you own, so you should do your very best to market it directly. And this guy, Mark Simpson, is very, very good at that, so you should read those books if you're interested. Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. That one's a particularly fun and easy read because he makes it like a story. It's a good one. The 4-Hour Work Week by Timothy Ferriss. I bet most of y'all have read that one. Mr. Tim Ferriss, yes. Profit First by Mike Michalowicz.
The buy then build that he's got on his list right here is real inspiration for us to go into these RV parks and buy once it's already existing, because it gives us the ability to take what we've gained over the years of me running my own business and him working for somebody in their business and helping them to increase their revenue. We're wanting to apply it to ourselves, and this buy then build is that's instrumental in a lot of the way that we think now. And then Adam Coffey is the guy that I was thinking of that I was looking on my phone. It's an Empire Builder. And so far, this book has been phenomenal.
I'm going to add one more, Traction by Gino Wickman. And that's maybe not for starting out, but if you go ahead and read it now, maybe it's something you can aspire to scale your company up and organize it. And I think what we have in mind for ours is kind of a combination of Traction by Gino Wickman and Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Those are both excellent books for organizing yourself and being able to work with others. And that leads me to my big real estate lesson is you cannot do this by yourself. Don't even try. Get partners, friends, the community, government, neighbors. You got to be able to talk to people and get along with people, or you're just not going to be a success.
Boom. That's some great advice. read and network.
Mhm.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. Everybody give these guys a good round of applause. Woo! That's some good info. So, yeah, come on back next month. And if you're not already on the email list or invite list, make sure to come give me your info. I see. Some people are new. Welcome. All right. And on Facebook people. Join the Facebook group. And you'll have access to secret stuff. Anyway, thanks a lot. See you next time. Have fun.
That was a good one.